This podcast is brought to you by Raycon, my friends. If you don't have any Raycon earbuds, what are you doing? What are you listening to? What are you listening to this podcast on? It better be Raycon earbuds. I love them. They're super light, super compact. The battery charge lasts a very long time. They have customizable sound profiles, earbud tap functions, noise isolation, awareness mode, and a whole bunch more. And the greatest part about that is that they're half the price of other premium audio brands. Ready to buy something small with a big impact? Go to buyraycon.com/brain today to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's buyraycon.com/brain to score 15% off. Buyraycon.com/brain.
So I believe I stayed up in that hospital all night long, in pain to a degree, but psychologically broken, blaming myself, believing that I should have been that person. I should be the one that can't breathe, or it should have been me there, not the other way around. And I remember that night experiencing.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Genius Brain Podcast. We are in the OG studio today. We have a very special guest. He's a homie I've known for quite a while now. Met him through our buddy Bart Kwan. He was training Bart to be a boxer. Let's go. We got Coach PJ in the house. You may have seen him from Fight Camp videos. He is probably your online coach that gets you through the day, gets your fitness going, gets that heart rate up, and sets your mood right for the rest of the week. Coach PJ in the house, everybody.
Ooh, wow, what an intro, David. My gosh, bro. You do that for everybody?
Everybody, man.
I feel so special and loved right now. Wow, this is great.
The good thing of what I really like about my podcast is that, some people will ask me, can you get this person on? And I go, listen, I don't know him. I don't give a fuck about him.
That's real. But you know me. You know me. So
I feel like there's so many interesting stories out there that, and when people reach a certain level like notoriety, you could hear their story elsewhere, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I think people generally like my interview style because it's very casual. But at the same time, like, you guys have to understand, like, we're going to have like an hour to an hour and a half conversation. I actually have to care about the subject matter at hand. You know what I mean?
It helps to know the why behind the what and to have some involvement from the heart,
Yeah, and I got to sit here and listen to this shit. So, if I'm here just to interview somebody just for other people's entertainment sake, which is fine because this is a platform for entertainment, but I still got to keep it to my roots where I do things because I enjoy it. So,
I love that. I love that.
What a lot of people may not know about you, which is what I'm curious about, which I don't even know this backstory at all, is that you are actually, so once again, just to refresh, boxing. This is this man's world. But before boxing was football.
It was.
And, we were talking about this before we started this podcast, where I was talking to you about me watching this Oscar De La Hoya interview and hearing him talk about the transition that he has to go to in his life outside of boxing, right? And hearing him talk about it, he sounds like he has no purpose and a reason to live.
Yeah.
And that shit always fucks me up a little bit because I think I've been in that place before.
Me
where
too.
I've had to make shifts, not because I wanted to, but because I had to.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people identify their whole being with their career and their job, they think that this is the end all be all for their whole life. I had a conversation with my wife about this where, for her, she's always challenging herself 24/7. And that's what I really love and appreciate about her.
Good.
And so sometimes when she's, in this mode, and this is early on in her career, she kept on nitpicking at these job and these career opportunities that she has, as she was trying to find fulfillment through her job. And basically what I was explaining to her is because I heard this from somebody else and it really affected me was a straight sentence: your career is not your life. Your career will have to end one day. So let's say you retire, right? What do you do then? Do you just contemplate life and you have nothing to look forward to? Not everybody gets to pick and choose what they want. Sometimes you have to deal with the cards that you're dealt with, and then you create opportunities through that. And so when I saw this with like that Oscar De La Hoya interview, and I've seen like other fighters like Mike Tyson and everybody else where they had to do this like career change, but your story is a little different. You were a football player, right? And you went from football and having to switch into boxing. I want to know how that happened. Let's start from like where you grew up, your whole story.
Oh man!
So where do we begin?
We'll start off with where I begin. My origin story starts in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. You see, I'm repping. I was actually born and raised in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, a little small suburb outside of Philly. But, we rep Philadelphia all day, every day, 24/7, 365, baby. But it is the place where all of my family still lives today. I've been very fortunate and blessed to now live here on the best coast in sunny Southern California. But my origins are back in the East Coast. Beautiful mother and father. Unfortunately, didn't have the best start at a home where my mother and father divorced really early on. And my mom did an amazing job of raising me and my younger sister by herself. But all of that kind of changed. And, January 27th, 1997, my father was murdered at a bar in Philadelphia, believe it or not.
Wait, how old were you?
I was 8 years old. I was 8 at the time, or 7 going on 8. And it was probably the first point in my life where my life was changed forever, where I didn't realize it at the time that my dad was gone and I was never going to have a relationship with him. I was never going to get to go to his house anymore. I was never going to get to learn how to be a man from him. And I didn't understand it fully. And that definitely had a lot of pain and a lot of deep wounds that I'm still unpacking even to this day. But I definitely am grateful now for the life that I have had since his, because my mother did, again, an incredible job. She took the mantle and decided that I'm going to raise these kids right. She did everything that in her path to sacrifice, to learn, to grow. She ended up, taking on multiple jobs. She ended up graduating from college, ended up going to an Ivy League school, went to the University of Penn, got another degree, started a business, while raising 2 kids by herself.
That's fucking wild.
She was a boss. And I give my mother all the credit where credit's due, because she's a great woman and did an incredible job raising 2 incredible people. I'll talk about my sister at some point because she's a boss in her own rights. But mom holding it down for us all of those years. And while she was doing that, she got me involved in some sports. Didn't have a lot of father figures around and a lot of great men in my life. So she put me on the sports. So I played soccer, got involved with some football early on. And so got to get really close to coaches, and they really helped and mentored me a lot. So I picked up football probably around like 10 or 11, but it wasn't like I was playing, every single week. I wasn't in all these kinds of leagues. It wasn't until like high school, freshman year of high school, that I started to really like football. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm tall, I'm fast, I can play both sides of the ball. Let me invest a little bit into this. So freshman year, I went to Monsignor Bonner High School right outside of Philadelphia. And it was an interesting experience going to an all-boys Catholic school. But your boy learned how to play football, and I started to really excel at it. And I started to love it. And it wasn't just one of those things where I was like, I'm cool at this, but there's growth. There's a place where I know I can be better at. And even early on in high school, I would watch college football almost religiously. Like I used to love University of Miami. And around that time, University of Miami was like the best football in all of the nation. They had some of the greatest players of all time: Sean Taylor, Ed Reed, Kellen Winslow. Everybody played in Miami. And I was like, these guys are so good and so fast. How'd they get fast and so strong? And from then, I kind of like morphed into really learning about how to train as an athlete. Even from 12, 13 years old, I started to like do some research and see, I should get some professional help. Like I should actually get people that know how to do this involved in my life. And I think sophomore year, my mom actually made a huge sacrifice and investment for me and hired a strength conditioning coach. So in high school, I started to take this sport really serious. I didn't take my grades as super serious, but I did enough so that I could still play and maintain that like BC average. But the strength conditioning coaching that I got helped improve my athletic ability tenfold. I mean, like I was a whole new player every 2 months. Every 3 months, I would continue to evolve. And I was like really young and experiencing growths and having a growth mindset. And I was like, dude, this is really cool. So developed a great relationship with my strength conditioning coach. And he helped me continue to put the tools together to be in that elite class that I could get recognition around the country. Then I'd say around my junior year, I said, I'm like almost done, high school. Like, I'm not going to college to become an engineer or a scientist or, I want to play football. Like, I set a goal to play football and I wanted to do it for free. I had seen the sacrifice, the hard work, and the willingness that my mother gave to make sure I succeeded. And I wanted to pay her back tenfold. So I wanted to go to college for free. And I knew that if I put my effort in here, it'll pay off in the long run. So my junior year, I went all in the off season, and then I balled out that year. I played both ways. I became, first in the league, and I started to get attention nationally. I started getting some college offers and letters, started to actually get my name out there. I didn't get Miami or USC on the radar yet, but, once a lot of those bigger D1 schools started to call, I was like, oh, this is working. You start seeing Virginia and Penn State, Michigan State. You start seeing these big schools, Stanford. They actually are willing and want to meet me and give me college tuition. I was like, this is money. This is great. All right. But even at that age, I remember wanting what I wanted. I was like, this is cool. I still want a scholarship from University of Miami. So in the summer going into my senior year, they do these like combine camps and whatnot. And where they bring college scouts out and they let kids do their test and play 7-on-7 and just show out the skills. And I went there, did vertical jump like 46, skipped the 40. I was like, let me just do these drills and ball out. And these kids, I see the scout that I know, keep your eyes on me. I go out there 7-on-7s and go do some one-handed catches, come down on one, and I hear my knee go.
Oh my God.
So I'm in the middle of the field and I just realized, like, I can't move this knee. And I hobble my butt off to the sidelines and try to sneak to the car to get away from here so the news wouldn't spread. But some of the scouts had saw that an injury occurred. And then the following Monday, I remember, I think about like 107 colleges offered scholarships, all of them off the table. Only 3 colleges were still committed to me after the word that I had torn my ACL. And that was University of Akron, Temple University in Philadelphia, and then West Virginia University in Morgantown, West Virginia. So I was hurt, had to go through ACL reconstruction surgery and was, sidelined my entire senior year of football. But I still had those scholarships. And, talking to a mentor of mine and my strength and conditioning coach and my family, we made the decision, to go to West Virginia and to sign with them. And I remember like it was yesterday, man. Signed a college letter of intent, had a big, signing day thing at my college, at my high school. And then July 1st of 2007, I was set to go off to West Virginia to start my football career. And it was one of the greatest things ever, getting to where I wanted to be, setting a goal and then planning for that goal and then executing it. It was incredible.
So for you, right? And I always say this because, we hear this constant narrative of like how important it is to have like a 2-parent unit family, right? Do you feel like your mom took the mantle of both like father and mother for you, or did you have another male figure in your life that helped you along the way?
I had a lot of uncles that came around, I will say, and family friends of my mother's. They were close and there were some great valuable lessons I picked up from them. But my mother was the primary force in my life. And she was the one that provided, protected. She looked out for me. However, I will say with a caveat today, knowing, and now, especially now being a father, that my mother could only do so much. There's only so much in her abilities to teach a person to be who they are called to be. And specifically with being a man, I do look back on and I'm grateful for the ways that she did teach me and the lessons I've learned. But I know also my life would be so different if my father was around. I could have learned a lot of different skills that I've had to pick up on later on in life. So would I have changed the way my life would be? Honestly, no. I really think all of the things that have happened to me happened for a reason and a purpose. And a lot of times I don't ever get to know what that is. I can look back in hindsight and see how that season or that struggle challenged me or taught me something. I'll even take a quote from Jalen Hurts yesterday, losing. There's you win or you get a lesson learned. And sometimes those lessons that are learned hurt. They are painful. They can be challenging and even scarring. And, I look back on my life in hindsight and I'm really grateful for the way that God has used these things to shift me and to mold me. And I know I'd be a totally different person if I had my father around and my mother wasn't that primary person, or, she might not have even gone to an Ivy League school or started a business.
Your father, he passed away when you were 8. So what do you remember of him?
My dad was a gentle, loving man. Ironically, I got to have my dad in the last years of his life. He had already, had 2 previous marriages and had 2 other kids. So I have a brother and sister who I love very much, and get to still do life with them. But he was a nice, awesome man. I just keep saying nice because that's the thing that I always see. He was gentle, kind, lowly in heart. He would literally, I think the last few years of his life, he became a pescatarian and tried to stop drinking beer and stop smoking cigarettes. And he was just trying to change his life and do better. And I remember that he would do whatever it would to make sure that I was happy in the times that I had him. So
what's interesting, like, I think we don't really think about this until we get older, where when I was younger, I remember my parents would talk about how important it is to have a strong family unit, right? And for some reason as a kid, whenever your parents tell you something, you always, I don't know if it's like me being like this kid with a chip on my shoulder, right? Like this young, like you always think the worst of sometimes the things that your parents say. So I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? People who don't have like a strong structured family, they're still good people. That's not what they were saying. But as a kid, you're so defensive. You just want to argue with everything. Yeah. And then what they were trying to tell me now that I'm older is like, there are things that happen to you when you are younger within your family life that will affect you as an adult, whether it's good or it's bad, right? So these things are some things that you should think about when you end up having your family or you have a kid, like how these factors will affect the next generation that comes up with. And I didn't realize that stuff until, honestly, probably even like 7 or 8 years ago, where a lot of my interpersonal relationships with like men and women who grew up in really kind of fucked up family lives that I knew about, right? And I start seeing these odd behaviors that are similar with every person that didn't grow up with certain figures in their lives, right? A lot of my female friends who didn't grow up with the male figure in their life, they all went through and I want to say all because I'm really thinking of like 6 or 7 of them. Yeah. Same issue, right? Where all of us as friends have had this conversation with them, where they had this perception and a view of what a man is when they never had a stable man in their life, right? This is what a man is supposed to do. Yeah. This is what men should do. And, it's like, where did you get this from?
Where'd you read that? What TV show did you see this example from?
Exactly. Like the idea of men being, vulnerable, that, having these times of weakness where, we can't take care of everything. We are partners here. I am not your father.
Yes.
And this is like a shift that a lot of them later on, some of them did, some of them didn't, right? Obviously, I'm not going to say their names, but let's call her Jenny, all right? So my friend Jenny too, we actually, I wouldn't say it was an argument, but it was a disagreement. And she gets very sensitive about the subject because she has cycled through so many relationships with men. And I asked her, because she was dating one of my good friends and they broke up. And when they broke up, she was crying to me about the guy or whatever, because I actually kind of hooked them up together. And I knew where he was coming from because he's my good friend. And I realized with her, what she was equating, what she wanted out of a man was more of what she wanted out of a father. know? So I was like, what didn't you like about, I don't know, his name is Billy or something. What didn't you like about Billy, right?
Don't throw him under the bus. Don't throw him under the bus.
So she was like, well, like I did everything for him. Like I cooked, I cleaned, all these like traditional tropes you see of what it means to be a strong woman, right? But I knew what Billy wanted out of a partner, and he wanted an equal. He wanted somebody who was motivated, that will wake up with the goal in mind. And what she wanted was, listen, I want you to go out there, make money and make all this money in the world so I could just sit at home and, I'll like suck your dick or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, listen. And the funny thing is that she didn't know that, right? And when I was talking to him, and what he told me was she equated her being a good partner to me by like, oh, whenever you want to have sex, we'll have sex, or you'll cook me some type of meal. He goes, I can go buy food.
Right.
I want to know, the last argument that they had was, hey, like, what are your plans? What are you going to do today? You probably do have plans, but like, what's the thing that makes you tick? What's the thing that the only thing she responded to after was like, don't ever fucking question what I fucking do. Like, I'm a self-sufficient woman, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, whoa. And then he broke up with her after that.
I understand.
I
clearly understand.
And it wrecked her. And then our conversation was like, listen, I know him and I heard about the argument that you had. And she explained the argument the same way he did, but how she feels about it was different. She goes, can you believe him? I was like, yeah, I believe him. I was like, you are equating your value as a woman. It's very interesting. Like we are in a time now where we have partnerships that are mutually beneficial, right? When you value yourself as a woman as like, oh, I suck dick really good, blah, 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 blah. Cool. That's fine. That's a bonus. That's a great attribute. Cool. That's great. That's not what he wanted in a partner. And what he wants in a partner is what he sees out of his household, what he saw his mom do. She was a woman that sucked it. No, I'm kidding. She was a woman. She ran her business with her husband, but she held shit down in the house, and the dad, it was something mutual. You wanted to fulfill a part that, albeit you will find a man that appreciates that out of you, but it wasn't what he wanted. Right. But once again, she was saying that he's not a man, blah, 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 blah. Like he doesn't want to provide for me. And I'm like, oh, this is where the difference is. And I saw the same trope with like 5 or 6 other homegirls who also grew up with fathers who went to prison, fathers who left them before they even knew who they were. So their identity of what a man is is something they had to create in their head rather than the personal experience that they grew up with at home.
Love that. Well put, man. Well, I think also, again, that the expectations there were clearly not communicated in a relationship. Yeah,
there's like something, obviously I don't know the relationship to that personal extent, but it was interesting hearing two same stories, 2 different interpretations.
Hey, listen, that's the cool part about it. And I love all people and I can respect everybody's opinion. We're all entitled to them. But again, like I said earlier, man, like people's opinions sometimes will have consequences. And again, if you don't communicate what your expectation is in a relationship, in a job place, there's going to be a gap in between where you might fall short, where there'll be some feelings that come in the way of what the facts are. And I'm big on communicating the expectation. And I really am grateful for my spouse. Me and my wife have really huge communication expectations for our relationship, and it works out. And I didn't get a chance to see that with my mother and my father. And it's a miracle to me somehow that at least my wife says this, that I'm a great husband and a great dad. And I didn't get to see either of those things really take place, not only in my father, my mother, but even in the people around. I didn't have a perfect, again, there's no perfect parent, there's no perfect father, no perfect man. However, just seeing people that are doing good and trying is a great benefit for a young person to witness and to have that experience. To my mother's credit, I got to see what a great woman does and a great business person and someone that will position themselves to have options and do everything to sacrifice for their children. And that is, priceless. I'm so grateful for that. But again, life would be so different if everybody had the perfect mother and father at home. If everybody grew up in a 2-parent home, maybe our world would be different. But I know that that's not the way the world is. And I'm not going to expect the world to change right now for that.
Yeah, and I think like the real positive thing is like, once again, with the few of those homegirls who've had like that, not having that male figure in their life, later on as they went through therapy, they figured out like, okay, maybe my expectation of what I expect out of a man is a little, far-fetched, right? Different, yeah. And so, the ability to kind of look at what you lack in your life and to kind of change it is a good ability to have, right? Because none of us are nowhere near being perfect, right? So I always find it to be a red flag when somebody says, hey, this might be a problem that we have in the media. It's like, fuck you. It's like, hold on a second. If it's somebody that you care about, that you guys want to have a good relationship with, it would be a good idea for you to hear themselves out, right? And I used to have this quality, like I just mentioned, when I was younger. And even now with my relationship with my wife, sometimes like when her feelings are hurt because of the things that I say, because, I'm a clown, I joke around a lot. I forget sometimes, she's not a boy.
Sometimes these jokes, they will hurt and they can cut.
They cut deep, and I look at her and then she's upset, or I'll look at her like how I look at some of the guys. Like when they say something stupid, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right. But I can't talk to her that way. And then that happened the other day where I looked at her, I was like, that don't make any fucking sense. What are you talking about? And she goes, you're looking at me really disrespectfully. And I'm like,
Don't look at me like that.
And I looked at her, I was like, oh, I'm not. And she goes, you just did it again.
Did it again.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, you're doing it right now. And I had to stop and think. I'm like, oh, I'm talking to her like she's like one of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to say, I'm sorry. And I apologize.
Oh, that's so good, man.
And those are words that I never heard in my household. And so even then for me, it's hard to say it, but I know that if I feel it, I should express it.
Yeah.
Because it's my pride and my ego getting in the way.
So good, bro. That's such a growth mindset to have.
And I'm telling you, it's hard. Like you don't grow up hearing people say, I'm sorry.
Nope. Or I love you. Or
hey, I love you.
Or this was my fault. What? So crazy. Or that offended me, but I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll be, downright, I'll honestly say it. Like after my father passing away, I remember years in my life that I struggled with anger. I struggled with unforgiveness, not only at the person who murdered him, but even like to God. Like, why would you take my dad away? Like, I was one of those young people that I'm like, yo, if God is good, like, why would bad things happen? Like, now I know bad things happen all the time to all people, and it's going to be okay. Sometimes really bad things end up working for good in the long run. Mm-hmm. I think tragedy sometimes ends up bringing a lot of hope in the long run. There's things that get turned around from terrible situations and circumstances that end up being some of the greatest things in people's lives. And again, like me tearing my ACL the first time was the first time. Great segue right back to that trash. Tearing my ACL the first time was damaging to me as a young teenager that wanted to do something and go somewhere. And then that opportunity was stopped. Couldn't do it. In hindsight, now it's the best decision that ever could have happened for me. Not going to a place where A, I would have never played. I was never going to play at Miami or USC. And then B, I probably would have had a terrible experience and I would not be where I'm at today. And also, again, tearing your ACL the first time prepares you for the second time. Because once I got to college and, played through one whole entire summer of training and getting ready for the season, tore my ACL in the last practice.
Get the fuck out of here.
Same knee. Similar situation, going up in the air, trying to catch the ball, coming down, landing improperly, tearing it. So I had to go through a second surgery in college. And then I thought I was done. I thought I was done. 2 ACLs recover, cool. Went through the reconstructive surgery, went through all the rehab. 9 months later, back on the field. Doctors give me the clearance. They give me the go ahead. Go do your thing. Go hustle. In the time, my college and my coaches were still kind, caring. They still took me in and still saw me as a project to work on for years and being an asset. So they kept my scholarship. They had faith in me and my work ethic to get back to not only 100%, but to be better than I was prior to that. And then I get out, go through a whole spring training, and on the very last practice of the very last workout, train my ACL the third time. So 3 times I had my right ACL.
Do you just
torn.
feel at a certain point God is just like, listen, I can't keep giving you signs.
This is not for you. This is not your path, okay?
Listen, I tore your ACL 3 times, and if you still don't get it by now,
I guess I'm a little hard-headed. My mom says that I didn't get the humble gene, and I'm hard-headed sometimes, and maybe I can't take a sign sometimes. But after tearing it the 3rd time, I will say that's when my life changed. Really, really tragically, in a sense. Losing my father was one, tearing the ACL and, not being able to play the thing that you love and had just dedicated the last 10 years of your life.
Mike, a little closer to you?
Yeah. Taking the last 10 years of my life to just dedicate to football and it not being a part of my life was hard. It was hard for me to deal with. But then I would say I didn't get to go to the bowl game. They played in the Meineke Car Care Bowl that year, I think against North Carolina. And I got to go back home. It was cool. I got to spend time with my family and experience Christmas and things were going well. And then January 9th, 2009, driving back to West Virginia with a friend of mine from high school who had gone to the same college with me. We were just going back to our school, about an hour and a half outside of West Virginia in Maryland. We were driving along the highway. I think it was the 705. And I started to drive on some ice and my car started to slide on the highway about 300 yards. And I don't really have too much control, but I'm trying to slow it down. And we literally crashed into an embankment on the hill. Me and my friend, we look at each other and we're fine. We're like, oh, that was a miracle. We called the police. We called our parents. I called AAA because once we got out the car, we saw that the only damage that had happened was my tire had been knocked off the rim. So I was like, call the tow truck. We'll be back to campus in like 2 hours. No problem. I look at my friend and we're standing outside of my truck, on the side of the highway. And I just remember looking at him like, wow, that's crazy that just happened. And then that was the last thing that I remember. A vehicle slid on the same patch of ice and then had hit me, hit my friend, and then hit my car. And I was knocked unconscious. When I woke up.
Hold on, you were outside of the car or inside the car?
We were outside of the car.
And you got hit by a car?
Got hit by a car.
Get the fuck out of here.
I actually, it's a miracle that I'm alive. And I'll say, I don't understand how things work and why, but I had got hit so hard. I had my iPhone in my front pocket. And this is like, thank God we called the police and we called our parents at that moment, because when I woke up, I no longer had shoes on. I no longer had socks on. My phone that was in my pocket in my front, I tried to pull it out and the iPhone literally was bent around my quad like this. So the iPhone smashed, broken. I wouldn't have been able to call and communicate to anybody. I see glass, I see fire, debris. Our car and our luggage is just scattered all throughout the highway. And then my friend was 8 inches away from my face down on the side of the hill, barely breathing. And I saw the car that had hit us. He was now facing oncoming traffic and he couldn't get out of his vehicle. So in that moment, in some sort of panic, I ended up rolling my friend over, giving him CPR until he could breathe again. I was yelling at the person who had hit us to call for help, call the police. And I just remember him yelling that he was stuck. He couldn't get out. And then I hobble up onto my feet and I'm stumbling through glass and I just see his door bent all the way in. And then I just grab him and pull him through the window and then run back over to my friend. And just then the police pulled up from the first time we called. They showed up. One of the officers helped stabilize my friend, bring him down, and then they called the paramedics. Paramedics came and took him to the hospital. And then they dealt with me and the other person who had hit us. I was fine by all accounts as far as injuries go. Had some bruising, some scarring here and there. But my friend had, I think, a broken elbow, broken arm. He had a really bad wound in the back of his head and he was bleeding. And they ended up taking him to Johns Hopkins. We were in the hospital together that night for a little bit. And then they transported him to another place, I believe. I stayed up in that hospital all night long, in pain to a degree, but psychologically broken, blaming myself, believing that I should have been that person. I should be the one that can't breathe, or it should have been me there, not the other way around. And I remember that night experiencing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and nightmares and terrors. And, about 2 weeks later, 2 weeks from that incident, my friend unfortunately passed away. And that's when my life, I remember, changed. That season of darkness and pain it engulfed me. And I experienced the worst depression of my life. I experienced night terrors all day long. I ended up actually in that season trying to, be normal, and I just couldn't. I remember just trying to drown the pain in any way I could possible, and months and months and months of struggle. And eventually, it was like I couldn't even keep my focus in class, and I literally went from like a 3.8 student to failing every single class. I failed every single class. I wasn't there. I was a shell of who I was as a human being. And that car accident changed my life and changed the lives of a lot of people. But now, again, I just look back, hindsight, it's 2020, and you can see change and fruit. I'm so grateful for being alive.
Do you ever look back at that situation and think like, because you said earlier that, you felt like it should have been you instead. What made you think that?
I was the older one. I was the one driving. Me and my friend had drove plenty of times. We had taken that trip like 8 to 9 times. Like we had done it all the time, and I was always driving. I was always caring for this kid and like taking care of his needs. And the fact that again that like his family entrusted me to take him to back to school. I was like, I just felt responsible. I felt guilty. I felt like if anyone should have been tragically injured in that night, it should have been me. I couldn't have controlled that person that hit us. We thought we were safe. We thought we were doing the right thing. And, it wasn't, you're never prepared for a tragedy. You're never prepared for incidents like this. And as a young kid, being in a hospital bed and hearing your friend being worked on by multiple physicians just with a curtain next to you, and they're looking at you like, how are you and him in the same thing? How are you in the same incident? This doesn't make I couldn't make any sense of it. That I look down and I just see a few scratches, scrapes, scars, but nothing broken, nothing hurt here. Like I'm physically still here. My friend's unconscious. And so that was a really tough thing for me to hear and to fight through.
Was he also an athlete too?
He played football on the same team with me in high school, but he wasn't an athlete in college. He was a regular student, a good regular student. And I am, he's always in my heart and forever. And he's one of the reasons why I did eventually get back to school and get my scholarship and graduate in his memory and honor. And, it is, even bringing up the story still brings pain. It still brings hurt.
Yeah, and, man, that's intense.
It was. And I would love to say that the story was all cheery and happy. And the months after that, I started getting the therapy I needed and recovery was smooth, and it wasn't. It was years of struggle, trial, of getting help and having the vulnerability to get out and to actually reach out for help and to start seeing a therapist, to start letting people know that I was dealing with some really dark stuff for a long time. And now I can see that it was a season of my life that grew me and has helped me to be able to overcome adversity in a lot of ways, because even after losing my scholarship after that season, I fought for that. I had to go through a lot of appeal courts because the university didn't want to renew my scholarship anymore. They're like, you're done, G, because you got to keep up the grades and you got to be an athlete. I had to go through so many rings and hoops to actually fight for West Virginia University to give me back my scholarship. And I finally was able to, and they gave me my full ride back, and I was able to finish the last 2.5 years of college and graduate with a sports exercise psychology degree. But yeah, it was a step in the story of my life, and I'm excited to now share with you and with people all around the world about it, man.
It's so interesting because, like, for you in your case, like, I'm always curious about people who, like, how does that transition happen, right? Because, we mentioned this before the podcast was recording, how there is a certain rhetoric that's happening now with a lot of young people because social media is full of young people's thoughts, right? And when you're young, you have to understand in my 20s and my teens, I was a full-blown fucking idiot. Everything that I thought and felt was facts, whether it was feelings or not, And sometimes when you have a whole group of people that kind of push that narrative that you're trying to push, even when it's wrong at the moment, you feel like you're always right? Oh, yeah. So, for you as a young person to go through that and kind of push yourself out of this type of adversity that a lot of people don't feel, right? They don't experience these type of crazy things. And like, I'm curious in your perspective of how you were able to shift yourself and not blame your circumstance for where you're at now, because it's very easy. Because I've done that at a young age, right? Where I'm like, okay, if only I had a little more money, if I wasn't so fucking poor, if I wasn't this and that, I would never be in these situations, right? In your case, I mean, you lost your father. Your father was murdered. Your mother had to take the reins and raise you. You had you focused your life through your mother's positive influence, and even then, through that focus, you had the injury that was taken that got taken from you. You recollected yourself, and then you got injured again, and then you got injured again, and then this happened. So, how did you compartmentalize all this stuff and somehow shift yourself into being the person you are now?
Very good. You can't
the
always,
mic a little bit.
You can't always deal. You can't actually control the hand that you're dealt in life, and I think from a young age and losing my father, I found that out. Oh, like I want to have my dad, but like he's actually not coming back. Like, cool. So I'm experiencing dissonance here with what I want and what I'm actually seeing in life, and realizing, like you don't control everything, but how you handle the situation is a huge testament to who you are as a person. And I've learned to realize I'm not going to control everything or every person, but I can control my effort. I can control my mannerisms. I can be upset and angry or offended, but I still have to show up. I still have things to do. I still have responsibilities. And, I will again say, like, my mother taught me very much as a young child to be responsible, to do the things that you have to do before to do the things that you want to do. And that just kind of stuck with me all the time. Like, I want to play football, but right now I can't. I'm hurt. I had to patiently put myself in a position. I understood, like, it'd be nice if I had more money. It'd be nice if I was faster or taller or I was less prone to injury, but I can't do that. So if I still want to be successful, I still want to accomplish things, I'm going to have to navigate and shift and change the trajectory of my life right now. And I think most of it comes from the perspective of your mind. Everything starts here. And if you can shift your perspective of what's actually happening, you can do a lot with it. Like I said, if you see a loss as just, this was a loss, this is a failure, and your mindset goes to that, you're going to take it as a failure and you're not going to actually grow or evolve from that. But if you take these things and you see, this is a moment for me to grasp what I did wrong and then change it to what I want to do right. Here's a moment where I fell short here. What can I do to improve myself on the next day, the next month, the next year? And I think having a mindset of always wanting to be better is hopefully, again, everybody would have that. If you want to keep getting better, you won't let adversity, you won't let failures, you won't let these losses take you out for so long. Now, I'll be real. When the car accident happened, when I went through that terrible season of my life, I didn't have a positive outlook on life. I wasn't growing. I was actually shrinking back. I was dying. I was literally doing everything I could to kill myself, I think.
Yeah.
So between food, alcohol, drugs, like I was not living and
trying to numb everything
I
out.
was trying to numb any kind of pain. Because again, like I would be in the middle of class and then I'll just I wouldn't even close my eyes. I would just look over to the right. And then I remember like a vivid HD 4K 180 video replay of that night would happen. And I would like freak out and panic. And like I had to like run out having a panic attack.
Wow.
And I can't lie and say that, it took me days or weeks. It was months and years of work and actually having to be in that darkness. And I really credit God to pulling me out of that. Like I remember getting saved in that season of my life, praying and saying, God, if you're real, show up. Like putting God to the test about if he's good and whatnot. And again, I don't want to get into a too deep topic about religion, but I truly believe that God works all things for a purpose. And again, we don't need to know what the purpose is. Ultimately, if we do our job, if we're diligent, if we are good stewards of our time, our talent, and our treasure, we'll be rewarded for that. And sometimes it's not the way we look at it. The objective and the goal and the where you're going to be at is not anywhere where you think it's going to be. Like again, I thought I would be playing in college, and then I thought, easy, go to the NFL. That's an easy dream and place where I want to be at. I had no idea that the plan was for me to end up taking a 180 and moving into boxing, and now for boxing to be a career of mine and something that I'm passionate about and a hobby. And, when I was in that darkness, I would say some random things happened that kind of set me up to do that. Like being on campus at West Virginia and then seeing a flyer for boxing tryouts. I'm like, boxing? Okay. I mean, I love the sport. I used to watch it growing up. Like it wasn't on all the time, but I remember when there was a pay-per-view fight with Mike Tyson, I was there. I remember watching Floyd Mayweather, Prince Nassim Hamed. I had watched these fights.
Prince Nassim.
Come on, man. One of my favorites of all time. I would watch these, but I was never trained formally in it. I was never like, oh, I should do that. I saw boxing as this elite pinnacle of athletic prowess. And when I saw that tryout, I showed up and I fell in love. The very first day, I just saw the flyer, showed up. The coach had a workout and had a team. And, I had, I guess been like 9 or 10 months removed from playing football. So I was still an athlete. I was still 6'2", 215. Maybe I might've been 220 because I put on some weight after that season of life. And, but I found a natural knack to box. And I also found myself while training in that room that my mind was here. I'm not thinking about the pain from the past. I'm not thinking about my failures. I'm not worried about anything else. I'm present right now. And that opened my eyes up in so many ways. So then literally Tuesday, Thursday, I would start training and I was like, oh, this is good. This is great. What happens if I want to get a little better? Like, oh, well, you can train on other days of the week. You can work with some other coaches. And I just started to ball with it. And like within 6 months, I competed in my first fight, went like 4-0, and I was just knocking people out. I ain't gonna lie. I definitely think I was raging off of some anger issues in the first couple fights and just black out and then had my hand raised. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
That's what happened. He's down. He's still down.
He's dead. I was like, oh, okay.
I was like that when I first started. Yeah. And, I was raw. I was ugly. I think one of my first fights is actually up on YouTube right now still. Not pretty, but I was enjoying myself. I was having fun and I was finding a purpose in something that I was doing. It wasn't the all purpose of everything. And I didn't see it as this is my career right now, but it was becoming fun. It was a hobby. It was something that I started to do and then competing. You're like, oh, this is cool. So I started to compete in amateurs at West Virginia. And then I was part of that team. Started to go out and see some tournaments. I was at West Point a couple times, started to get into these national tournaments, and boxing just became everything to me. I became immersed in it, started studying some of the greats, started watching the Haglers, the Hearns, the Pacquiaos. I started to actually shift my mindset and go, I was a student of the game for football to a T, that I would watch hours and hours of film to study and to prepare myself for games or practices even to just transfer this skill here. You can see so much more of the sport and understand so much more when you have a student's mind to it, right? I always like to be a student of life. And when I was boxing, I was like, I got to study. I got to learn, see how these people that are great doing, and then implicate it, try it, test, see what it is. And that's when I also figured out that I was a southpaw, even though I am right-handed. Try to say a little like Andre Ward a little bit,
Well, that's a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was. It was during the amateur days.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. At the same time, competing, also taking on a leadership responsibility with the team and training other fighters. And it was just magical. I guess like I'm improving myself. I'm helping other people improve. This is great. Like coaching seems to be something that I can kind of dwell in. And that was it, bro. I started to go. I started to accumulate certifications. I started to, again, after I graduated, started to put all my energy into coaching. And also, I still competed on the side here, but I knew where my mind was at. My mind was to help people improve, not just to make me make money or not just for me to become a great fighter. So I really committed myself to being a student of the game and of the art itself, and then helping people in more than just, again, timing, offense and defense, but strength and conditioning, understanding, training the mind, because again, everything starts from there. So my career shifted to then being a strength conditioning boxing coach. And I worked at UFC Gym and LA Boxing over on the East Coast. And that was a great experience for me. Working and doing what I love to do, but then also seeing the business side to it and knowing not every person is going to be a professional fighter. A lot of people want to learn how to box and better themselves. And if they're willing to commit and they're willing to make the sacrifice and be a student, well, why not take them on? So I started to train dozens, if not hundreds of people over in the East Coast. And my hunger just grew. An opportunity called for me to come and work here on the East or on the Best Coast. And I transferred and came over here to UFC Gym Torrance. And that was a great start for me in 2015 to start doing what I do today, which is not get punched in the face, but still make a lot of money off boxing. And I love doing what I do every day, brother.
That's amazing, man. Your story is fucking nuts, dude. That was actually I did not expect that at all.
See?
Like, as you were telling your story, I was picturing it in my head and I was getting PTSD through you.
I'm sorry, bro.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Was I there? You know, it's kind of crazy. Like when I hear what a lot of people go through in order to find, and you know, you said something very interesting too, which I think this is what I really enjoyed about, because I started kickboxing only like 3.5, 4 years ago, right? And obviously my time was split, so I was doing it when I could and when I can. But it was the idea of when you're training a martial arts, you are very much present. Why? Because if you're not, you get socked in the face.
Going night-night, baby.
Yeah. So you're paying attention to this one thing. And I think like what I also really liked about martial arts is the honesty. Yeah. And in terms of, you could talk a big game as much as you want. Once you're in that little cage, the ring, the octagon, whatever it is, let's see if you're really about that fucking life. Yeah. And I think I kind of romanticized a lot of, I was gullible, right? Because I never trained like that before. So whenever somebody told me like, oh, I trained 4 or 5 years boxing, I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be good. And then you train with them, I'm like, you did cardio kickboxing for 4 years, you know?
Blanks.
It's like, and in my mind, I'm like, like it's one of the most honest sports ever. You cannot lie. Actually, sports in general are honest. Like you enter into a ring of competitors, they're going to sniff you out so fucking fast.
So easy.
It's
so easy.
And even for somebody, like for example, there was one of the things I really, really disliked was, you know, when you come to train, especially with, you know, you've seen how we train. We all are just a bunch of friends too. And we have a couple people who are actual trained fighters that train us, right? And the rest, we just follow suit. And we would bring some people on who would talk a big game. And once again, me being a gullible person, I'm bringing these people in like an idiot, you know? I'm like, oh, hey, my buddy, he says he trained for X amount of years. And then we and we bring him in. And I'm sitting there shocked. I'm like, you suck.
Show up.
Yeah. I was like, you've lied to me for so long. You know,
it's terrible.
I'm like, you're getting your ass beat, you know? And I'm like, what was all this shit for? What is this bullshit for? Yeah. You know, leave that shit in Hollywood, man. This is there's fucking killers here, like, you know?
Real talk. Like once you get into some of the amazing MMA and boxing gyms that are throughout this country, there are some real dogs out there, bro. There are some dogs that you do not want to get in the ring with, and they'll let you get in the ring with them if you have the credentials or you're going to pay the money, and they'll teach you a lesson. Free 99. Yeah. Put you out on your face. A super funny story. I think when I came out to LA a couple of years prior to me moving here, 2013, I was still active in amateur, so I still fought here and there. And I went to Wildcard. I'm like training with one of my friends, and it's a sparring day, and then there's pros are in there. I was like, oh, let me hop in there. And like, man, we don't got no heavyweights. I'm like, I mean, that I'm offended, but you ain't lying. You ain't lying. I'm a whole 195 pounds here. Yeah. And then there's like this one little Russian dude popped up. Like, you want to go some rounds with him? And I was like, oh yeah. This dude's 154 pounds. 154 pound, 5'3" Russian dude. He hops in the ring with me. And I'm like, all right. His coaches look at me and was like, go light on him. You know, take it easy on him. Don't jab him too hard. I'm like, I can do that. I'm a heavyweight. I walk over to this dude. I'm like, let's have some fun, man. Have a good time, da-da-da. And he says something to me in Russian. I'm like, oh, this nigga he don't speak English. I'm about to die. I start throwing my jab at him a little bit. The coach is like, pull it back. That's too hard. I'm like, all right. He comes in with his overhand right, hits me like the back of my head. I'm like, oh my God, help me. What do you mean I can't go hard? How am I going to live through this round? I got to keep him at bay. And I just remember like afterwards, we had good conversations. We did like 3 rounds. I was like, this little dude hit like he was 400 pounds. Yeah. And I'm like, unknowing, you don't know until you see it. There's so many people that are unassuming, that are just, you know, you can look at them on the outside and not know that they have that dog in them. They have a little killer inside of them.
And that's the thing too, like even something that's non-fight related. I remember the first floor seat tickets I ever had was to a Clippers game. I have a friend who works for the Clippers, and she hooked it up. I was literally floor seats.
There you go.
And you know, you're watching it from a TV screen, right? And you see how athletic these people are. And then I see it where I'm on the floor with them in person, and I go, I get it. You guys are not human. This is why you're the elite of the elite.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just watching, it was a Blake Griffin and fast break did a dunk. I was like, did he just walk across the whole court in 6 steps? Okay, you know?
Basically, yep.
And in my mind too, I'm like, why are these people just getting the fuck out of his way when he's dunking? I was like, you know why? Because it's like a fucking freight train just flew in the air.
Mm-hmm.
If you get hit by one of those knees, you're out. You're done. You're dead.
Done. There goes your career.
You're pretty much dead. And that was a sobering moment for me where I'm like, oh, it's different from looking at it on the screen and being there in person. They're so fucking fast on the floor. I couldn't keep, my eyes couldn't keep up. It was like this. I'm like, I can't see what's going on. So I wanted to move back more so I could see them work because they were just too quick.
I like that.
So I was like, oh, athletes are different.
They are.
There are people who do it for fun. There's people who do it for fun. And there's people that are about that fucking life. There's
levels. There's levels. And you find out real quick when you get immersed in it and you see, oh, I'm not cut out for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love when I'm just like, I played football in high school or I'm like, I played football in college. I was at the Division I school on a full scholarship. It was like at the elite. And then I saw some of them cats from Florida that were on my team that ran like 4.2, 4.3 and had like, everything handed. Dude, these dudes were stacked. They were ripped. I had wide receivers that could bench like 400 pounds and squat 6. I'm
That's
like,
fucking insane.
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
We're on the same team and I'm not on your level.
Yeah.
This is why I'm second string and I see that now. And you see it more, I think, in combat sports than ever. And that's why I'm a huge fan of, and I'm always going to be a fan of combat sports as a whole. Boxing, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu even now. And one of the worst things you can see is people that don't understand the sport that are just watching it and going, oh man, I would have threw this, or that guy took you down, man, just get up. Have you ever wrestled or done jiu-jitsu? It is so hard to get a grown man off of you. Like, it's terrible.
That's why when I went to it was Henry Cejudo versus Mighty Mouse.
Oh,
it was his last fight at the UFC. I was there with Bart and Gio. We all got tickets. And I didn't realize how stupid UFC fans are. My lovely genius farts, or in Korean, pangus. That's right. This podcast is brought to you by Raycon, my friends. And I'll tell you this time of the year is where everybody's talking about making big changes, which is all well and good, but most of the time pretty unrealistic. And I have done that multiple times. I've said I was going to get a 6-pack every year, and I have failed, but I've gotten a little more fit every time. I've actually found that the smallest changes to your routine can make the biggest impact. In the same way you don't have to break the bank to make a big deal purchase, even the smallest things can be a part of a big change if it's something that you use every day. Raycon is premium audio at the perfect price point so you can build great habits without breaking the bank. I use my Raycons whenever I jog, whenever I work out, because they're light, the charge stays for a very long time, and the sound is pretty darn good, my friends. And yep, Raycon starts at half the price of other premium audio brands. So stop spending your money losing them, breaking them. And by the way, if you have earbuds with cords in them, what the heck are you doing? Get some Raycons, baby. Why don't you drive a car with an 8-track in it too? Jesus Christ, my friends. I love them. Noise isolation, awareness mode, custom gel tips for the perfect, most comfortable in-ear fit, and so much more. Ready to buy something small with a big impact? Go to buyraycon.com/brain today to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's buyraycon.com/brain to score 15% off. Buyraycon.com/brain. Until I was in the crowd and people were screaming, right? She's like, why are you trying to take it to the ground? Just fucking knock him out. Oh, really? Like,
I didn't think of that. Genius thing.
They have no idea what they're doing. Yeah, they're not knocking him out because they don't want to. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
They can't.
Yeah.
He's moving his hands and blocking.
Yeah.
And it's a moment of milliseconds and millimeters. And that's the game. Like, the football is a game of inches, and it certainly is. But combat sports, you can miss a punch by a second or by a half an inch, and it can be the difference between you knocking your opponent out or you having to go to 5-round distance.
Yeah, and even the age thing, like watching Anderson Silva. Now, I remember I was watching the Silva fight his last few fights at the UFC, and then I was looking at Silva, right, and I said, and then Bart was like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, I think people are misconstruing Silva's skill set for his age. Silva's doing what Silva does. He's just a millisecond slower now.
Yes.
And so him playing hands down his head movement because of that millisecond of being slower because of his age, and time always gets everybody.
Yeah.
He's getting cracked now because it was literally like when he's slipping these hits, it's just a slight delay, and then he could come with the counter. But guess what? When that time gap is closed now, he's getting cracked.
He has been, man. That's a little, that's sad. Don't give me some more, PTSD on that one, because I love Anderson, and he's one of my greatest fighters of all time. I still will say I idolize him as a fighter and what he's done. But when I watched him fight Izzy, it was like, watching, this guy get beat up, I felt bad. Izzy felt bad. He was like, man, I'm beating up my mentor, my idol, my hair. I'll get that. But Anderson is a really cool cat. I've had the pleasure of training with him a few times and hanging out with him here in LA, and even going paintballing with him. He's a different type of coach though, because when he coaches and says stuff to you, like, he's like, I'm gonna show you this form and just try. And he does sweetest, nicest, coolest guy when he speaks in his Brazilian. But then when he like shows a move, like he's like, he'll yank on, he'll pull. Yeah. He don't have no chill. Yeah. He has no chill. And Anderson, I'm sorry if you see this, brother. I still love you. I just don't want to do any more jiu-jitsu lessons with you.
He's still Brazilian, dude.
Yeah, no, he is. But I learned a lot from him, and I don't want to say I got a lot of injuries from him, but I definitely have felt the force of that. He's an old man now. He's an old man, but he still got it. He's still got it.
I mean, you look at his kids.
Oh man, his kids are his kids are great. I've sparred with them and worked with them before. I haven't in like a couple of years, but both of them, Gabe and Cal, those kids are monsters.
The younger generation of fighters now are fucking nuts. They get to have this plethora of knowledge at their fucking fingertips now. So now you get to choose what you want to be. Yeah. Right. So like watching his sons kind of take on what his dad does, but still take knowledge from other coaches, you're seeing like another potential onset of an Anderson 2.0. Who knows, right? We don't know what's going to happen when they're older, if they're going to still compete. But it's kind of like there's this other kid named Joseph Brown. Okay. Young black kid, Taekwondo like champion, but Golden Gloves boxer. This kid is disgusting. Ooh. Amazing. I'm watching this kid kickbox, and I was like, dude, amazing. And then I saw him box. I was like, he might be a better boxer.
Really?
Yeah, I got to show you his account.
UFC's going to be calling. Dude, you know that? He might get that contract.
I give another 5-6 years, he'll be in the UFC.
That's so dope. I love that.
I cannot wait.
I love that.
Like, man, the next generation of fighters that's coming out, like just watching them is pretty nuts. Like these young people, they're so much more creative. They don't have as much closed walls. Now they see these opportunities, especially in jiu-jitsu, like these young jiu-jitsu kids, they're phenoms. Like, how did you even think of that?
17, 18 black belts. My son has no choice. He has got no choice. You're doing jiu-jitsu and you're an Eagles fan. That's it. That's it. I mean, I'm gonna make sure and hope that he goes to church with us. But this boy, you're doing jiu-jitsu, really young. I love that you just put that like that. They're not seeing things in a box. I think that for so long, especially in boxing, there's been a lot of gatekeepers per se, and a lot of people have been kind of fixed into this fundamental understanding of to improve or to be a world champion. It's road work, push-ups, sit-ups, sparring. You do mitt work, you do bag work, here and there. There are so many more fundamental ways to involve growth in a combat sports life. Again, balance, timing, reaction, again, conditioning, muscle and endurance. There's so many other things that you need to pay attention to in order to be great, and that it's being shined on in today, especially with knowledge being so vast and being so accessible. You can develop as a fighter a lot earlier on now. And then you are not confined to these 4 or 5 trainers and these 4 or 5 modalities of training. Some of these kids are getting the world's elite training. The best things that they can do is, and then again, a lot of things are even geared towards injury prevention, training their mindset first and how to overcome an obstacle, how to overcome an injury in the middle of the first round, or being, not being able to see in one eye, or having to, overcome being in a southpaw position. I think we are in an age and a day where we're going to continue to see evolution in these athletes in crazier ways.
And, when you were bringing up the whole thing of you in high school, just, where your physical conditioning was really the factor that allowed you to level up so quickly, right? Let me tell you something. I hate weight training.
Come on, brother.
Let me tell you something. I fucking hate that shit. But listen, I understand the importance of it later on, right? Because when I first started kickboxing, I didn't weight train or do shit at all, right? I barely wanted to stretch. I was like, fuck that shit. Stretching's fucking whack. And then lo and behold, like 3 or 4 months in, and Nick knows this, like, oh, what's this little tear I have in my shoulder?
I had an injury.
Yeah. I'm like, why do I keep tearing my fucking shoulder? You know what I mean? And then Nick is on my ass about that. He goes, how many times did I tell you? You have to weight train, right? It's good for bone density. It's good for endurance, everything. And I'm just like, shut up.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. I'm the same. I used to be the same way. And I did not like it, but I love the results from it. And I understood, again, if you put in the hard work now, you're going to reap from that later on in life. And strength conditioning is one of those things that every human being should, not just athletes. All of us should be lifting weights 3 to 4 times a week. But we're not. Most of us are doing nothing or running maybe. I'm just saying. I'm all about training and I'm all about putting in the effort. But also, again, I think I had a little different understanding of it. Because I got to see the results from my effort, in my own growth as an athlete. But then I was, mentored by some strength conditioning coaches, and I got to really understand the anatomy of the body and how to grow and how muscles grow and how you can adapt and grow and change in different seasons. And I got to credit Ryan Ojeda, Mike Barwis. These guys were really close to me and really helped me learn and took me under my wing. Took me under their wing at some of the lowest moments in my life. And I would not be so heavily invested in strength conditioning if it wasn't for them. So,
and you're seeing a lot of these athletes who really do put the time into strength and conditioning. You're seeing like the fruits of their labor, especially like, let's go. I mean, it's already passed a few weeks, but there was the Islam Makhachev and Volkanovski fight. I'm not saying that because of when this comes out.
Of course.
But look at how much the endurance mattered in their fight. It was insane.
It was a high intensity chess battle, bro.
Like even now, right? If I'm short on time, I want to get a quick workout. I get the fight camp bag. Yeah. I hit the timer 5 minutes.
Let's go.
And then all of a sudden I look at the time. I'm like, it had to be 5 minutes and it's 2 minutes. And I'm like, okay, how the fuck?
2:30. You still got plenty to go.
I'm sitting there just like, somebody stop time. Like somebody's cheating. Who the fuck stopped time? How the fuck is this 2 minutes? Like I'm dying. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, bro. I'm just glad that you're hitting the bag. I'm glad that you're still training with Fight Camp because you can train with me for 5 minutes, makes the day, but you should be stretching beforehand.
Oh, so
and after.
Now like stretching is everything. So I fucked up my ankle real bad playing basketball when I was in college, and it's just, I have like maybe 70% mobility in it, right? Because I stretched, I got maybe about 80% more mobility.
Progress.
The knee, I've only have like 60% mobility because of the torn meniscus. And I tried to rehab as much as I can, but I do need the surgery now. I talked to a doctor. He goes, it's pretty good, but you're going to need surgery if you want to be able to sit on your knee. Yeah. So I was like, okay, so it's a full bucket tear. So we found that out through an MRI. I understand, but the stretching and the strength conditioning in and of itself already helped me when I was boxing because you just move better.
Yeah. You move faster, move quicker. Who doesn't want to be better? That's the whole thing. Yeah. And in order to make progress like that, people, you do the work, you do the movements, yes, but you can improve the joints, the muscles, the bones behind the movement to improve on a whole nother level. And yeah, like you said earlier, Father Time's undefeated. And we see Anderson, lose, and we see maybe even LeBron, but clearly you can defy it. You can delay it. You can put the effort in now to help the longevity of your life so I'm adamant about that. I'm adamant about getting you to do some strength conditioning because I know it's going to benefit those injuries and it's going to benefit you in a whole lot of other ways.
Yeah, every day now. So I do a little weight training every day. It's all the shit that I hate too, which the reason why I started doing the things that I hate is because of David Goggins. Like this guy,
I love Dave.
I take a little percentage of his crazy. I just need a little bit of it, right? And it's the idea of mentally fortifying yourself with the things that you hate that you know that are good for you, right?
Yes. Well, yes.
Like there's many ways that I could get cardio done, right? But guess what I hate? I hate running. But guess what I'm doing? I'm running now, right? Because I'm trying to harden my mind. And it really does help me when I do other things too, where the application of doing things that you don't like when it benefits you helps you in all the other things that you needed to improve on. And it's been really great. Like even every day, no matter how fucking tired I am, I go into that fucking gym and I have a set list of the things that I have to get done today, right? Stretch for half an hour, hit this bag 15 minutes, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Yeah. And even if I don't have that time moment, I have to get it done throughout the day. So if it's going to be, okay, we got those landmine squats in, you have to hit a meeting in about 10 minutes, cool. Knock in 2 sets. There you go. Right. And then finish the 3rd set later tonight.
I love that mindset, bro.
And so, it's tough. Like, I'm not going to lie. It's tough. Like I kind of fucked up. This Saturday after the Volkanovski fight, I thought I was a UFC fighter.
I saw the story.
And I threw up. Like when I got a little carried away,
Sometimes it happens. That's why it's always good to be, motivated, stay relevant, watch some things. Maybe you might, you don't know. You might watch a fight and then the next day go, I'm going to go to the boxing gym. But you said it really well. You write it down. You put it in a position where it sucks, but it's going to make me better. And I think overcoming and hardening your mind, then it translates to everything in your life. And the moment we stop doing that, that translates to everything in our lives. The moment we get soft, the moment we get weak, the moment we don't hold ourselves accountable and do the responsible things is when we start giving in to temptation a little more. Mm-hmm. It starts getting a whole lot easier to go and to not do anything. Mm-hmm. And I've done that in my life. I've gone through that season. And once you go through that season enough, you can sometimes come through it and realize, I can't do that, G. I will not sit back and just not live, And again, everybody goes through a different struggle. Everyone's going through a battle that we might not have any idea about it. So I think there's always a space and a place to give people grace, and we should. And we should be loving to people because their battle might be harder or darker than anyone we've ever gone through. However, at the end of the day, because we are responsible for our own lives, setting that standard and doing the hard things is something that everyone should do. Yeah, it sucks, but you're going to get better. Yeah, it sucks. It's going to hurt, but the people that are around you are counting on you to do that.
Yeah, and my buddy Matt, he owns this brand. It used to be called Hate Brand, but now it's called Not Dead Yet. And he has this. He was a Highlands game competitor.
Okay.
He was an athlete himself, but he has this thing where he always posts. He goes, he counts the weeks that he has left before he dies, right? And he goes, I have a general idea of how many weeks I'm going to live, and I'm going to make sure that I live to my utmost potential every day before this number is done. And so hearing that, because nobody really wrestles with the idea of mortality until it's too late.
Until it's close, until you see it.
Yeah. We have a limited time on this earth. What you do while you have the time here now, while you're healthy, really matters.
It does.
Right? Whether it's not only just for yourself, but for the people that you care about around you too, And I didn't realize that until maybe 7 or 8 years back, right? It was just a sobering moment of looking at my parents and they were old.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, time has passed.
True.
Right? And they're not going to be here forever. And even for, somebody like my wife, right? Mm-hmm. There might be a time where I pass before she passes before me. Mm-hmm. So the time that I have here is very, very important. And I think that kind of motivates you in a different way. So when you wake up with purpose. It goes, okay, what am I going to do from the moment I open my eyes till I shut my eyes? And the next day I start it all over again.
Making the days count, brother.
Yeah. And it feels good. And, I think sometimes too, people ask the same questions on this podcast. They go, what motivates you? It's like just life in general.
Life. This moment right now motivates me. I love that you said that. I got to connect with your boy because me and him seem like we were on the same mindset and the same vibe with that because I wake up like that. I have it tattooed, ingrained in my arm. Again, no excuses, no regrets, to not make an excuse and to not live life with regrets. Rather, again, something was painful or hurtful or even damaging, you can use that and learn a lesson from it. And each of us, every single one of us, has been given a different lot in life, but we all have the same exact 86,400 seconds every single day to do what we can do with it. Mm-hmm. You and me and LeBron and Bill Gates and Oprah, we all got the same day. Yeah, we were different lots, different lifestyles, different attributes, but there's nothing different about us getting a day. How we utilize it is up to us. And I think from a perspective where I used to waste time, and I have wasted seasons of my life and not done my best to maximize my day, I never want to do that ever again.
Yeah. And, I say it a million times on the podcast. One thing you guys have to understand is that one thing guaranteed in life is that you will die. And the other thing that you never get back is time. Ever. Never. Every second that passes by, there's nothing that you can do ever that'll get you that time back. It just goes. Life goes on whether you choose to go on with it or not. Life will always go on. Dwelling on things doesn't get anything done. People sometimes get a shit hand dealt to them.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And I think for me too, and obviously for you, when we dwell on these things, man, and then the moment that you snap out of it, what do you think about? fuck, I wish I would have done more with that time.
Yeah.
But it's gone now.
You're
Right?
right.
So I could sit there and dwell on that shit, or I could just move the fuck on.
And go.
Exactly.
And go.
You know?
I do. And I think, life is a great lesson and it teaches us, but we had to learn it. We have to make the adaptation and step into it. And I want to always encourage people. I want to encourage you and your listeners and everybody else that you are responsible for you. No one's coming to save you. So if you want to do something in life, you have to do it. Make the necessary sacrifices and steps in your life to plan, pray, prepare, and then execute it. And if you fail, get up and try that steps again. Go after it. No one's going to just hand you the job opportunity you want. No one's going to just, say, yeah, I'll marry you. You have to go out. And if you want to date that girl, go ask her. Step out of your comfort zone and stop being okay, being inside yourself, comfortable, and not letting life bother you. Again, if you want something, you go out and do it. And I'm all about making the opportunity available, but you have to position yourself to have options and to do the best you can do. Because again, there's only so much you can say and blame your parents or your grandparents for the way they set up their lives that impacted you, because they're not here. They're not in your moments. They're not doing what you can do to improve your life. So I'm never going to blame my parents, my grandparents, or anybody in my life around for what's happening in me.
Yeah. And, the typical response that probably I'll hear from a lot of people who tend to be very pessimistic is, that's easy for you to say, you don't know what I'm going through. It's like, that's true, but you don't know what I'm going through either.
That's so true.
Right. But I'm not putting that on you, and you shouldn't put that on me. The idea that when somebody, I'm not saying that they're checking you per se, but they're giving you perspective, and your response is that, oh, you're minimizing how I feel. No, I'm saying feel how you feel, but eventually you got to get the fuck over it. Right. Like, I'm telling you, feel how you fucking feel. Right. It is within your right to feel sad when fucked up shit happens, but you're going to have to deal with it. And it is not my responsibility. It's not your parents' responsibility, anybody else to dig you out of the hole that you're in right now, even if you didn't dig that hole yourself.
Right. And a lot of people are there. A lot of people are dealing with the choices that another person made. And we're in a world where that's understandable. A parent makes a messed up decision or moves his family in another place. Yeah, you're going to have to deal with that decision that they made, but that's not every decision in your life. You can still change. You can still grow. You can still be successful. You can still come from a single parent home. You can still overcome adversity and be great. And the only person that's going to do that is you.
And I've definitely learned to cut out certain people in the last few years who always have this rhetoric of, oh, woe is me. Why is my life like this? Even when their life is good. And I can't be around that anymore. Especially now I'm thinking about, people I get closer to and the people that I get know. I don't want you to be around these people because you're going to suck the light out of them.
Pull you down, man.
Yeah. So I can't have you around anymore. And for them, they're just thinking, see, people leave me. But you take no personal responsibility in the energy that you put out. We don't got to be around for that shit.
No. No. There's some people that you can love from a distance. And yeah, it's a hard conversation sometimes, especially if you had longevity, if you've had a longer relationship with somebody, but you see them, again, pulling themselves down, pulling other people down, speaking nonsense. Like, those are the type of people that you don't want to have in your life. And I think the breakup is hard, but it's a loving thing to be honest to somebody, even if that conversation will be hurtful to them. Because if you don't say it, no one's going to. Yeah. No one's going to tell this person that they're a terrible person and that they need to change some things unless you bring this up to them. A lot of people, including myself, we don't ever look in the mirror. We don't see who we truly are. We don't take the time to reflect. We don't take the time to understand what ticks, what makes us who we are. And, sometimes there are some people that you have to cut out around you because they're influencing you in the wrong way.
Yeah. And those destructive people will tear you down. And we've in one of my circles, like, we had to cut this one person out because this person literally said, as we all confronted this person, and she wanted to, confront us. And it was to the point where everybody had the same story, but this person. And it's like, oh, all of you are crazy. So 8 people are crazy, but you're the only sane one.
Make that make sense.
Yeah.
Make that make sense to me.
All 8 people have the same story, but you. So we're all crazy. so we're all against you. Like that makes absolutely no sense. And the person, the last straw was when this person was screaming at the top of their lungs, I have done nothing wrong. I have done like repetitively, I have done nothing wrong. I was like, oh, you're done.
That sounds very narcissistic.
Very narcissistic, very just the sense of personal responsibility is zero. And you are somebody I cannot be around because apology is not in your blood. It is not in your system. And it's not something that you could ever do.
That's sad.
So, that person ended up losing all of us. And at the end of the day, and the funny thing is it's such a small world. So you can hear the stuff that they say about you after, right? And it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying. And then people will ask me. So I had a friend who is a mutual friend of ours.
Okay.
And he was like, yo, that person said this and this and this about you. I was like, what do you think about that? I was like, that's okay. They're allowed to think that. I was like, I'll say this about this person. I want this person to be happy because the more happy they are, the less they fuck with us.
I love that.
When you are satisfied in your own life, you don't try to tear other people down. So I have no ill will towards this person. I want them to do well, so they'll shut the fuck up and be happy. Like,
hey, you gotta wish well upon your loved ones and even wish well upon your enemies.
Yeah, because imagine if your enemies are happy, they don't fuck with you. Because they're happy.
Leaving you alone.
Yeah, they leave you the fuck alone. And I remember when I said that, this person had a light in their head. They go, something's different. How come your story's so different from theirs? I was like, because one person's being honest and the other person isn't. Clearly. I was like, listen, you do whatever you want. But when we have a conversation, we don't speak about that person because I'm not putting my time and effort to tear this person down when they're already in a shitty ass place. I'm good.
That's good.
So if I'm good, I don't gotta shit on somebody who's beneath me. Let them do their shit. And guess what? The truth always reveals itself.
Always.
And it has.
Always.
And within our group, within the whole everybody else, they started to see, because it first started with, oh, you guys ejected this person. Now you're a terrible person. I'm like, cool, I'll give you guys time. You sit with that. And then you come back to me and apologize after. And everybody came back and apologized. Wow. They go, oh, because you know why? Every time they hung out with that person, guess what they were doing? Talking shit all the time. And then they would come to me, what do you think? I don't care. What do you want to eat?
I don't care. I just want to know what's on the menu. That's me. I'm content and happy where I'm at. And I don't have time for that. I don't have time for people in my life that are going to tear down. And I've had to, it's again, you got to do the necessary thing to protect yourself and to protect your loved ones and your inner circles. And those tough conversations need to happen. But it's a loving thing to be honest with somebody before they hurt themselves, before they hurt everyone around them and end up ruining their lives. And then again, sit in that situation where everyone's left them and then they still blame everyone else instead of blaming themselves and seeing, oh, I'm the cause of the problem. I'm the one that's responsible here. I think, again, taking self-responsibility, taking ownership of your flaws and the good things you have is a great way to just be real. And not too many of us want to be real. It's a sad truth, but the more real you are with yourself, the more honest and open and real you can be with everyone else around you.
Yeah, and being real too doesn't mean that you're a fucking asshole. Like you can be honest with the people around you with kindness and love, right? And how you take that on. If people truly are in your circle and they are your good friend, you should be able to listen to this, right? That's the hard part. Sometimes we just have people who are likable, who want to be your echo chamber. You just want to hear somebody repeat back what you already believe, which when it comes to good things, that's great. But sometimes when you step out of place or you step out of line, you need somebody to be like, hey, chill. Like my best friend's out in New York, right? That fool, we always check each other all the time.
That's good. That's a good relationship.
We agree with like 99% of things, but sometimes when we get out of pocket, we go, hey man, what the fuck you doing, man? Like,
I like that. That's accountability.
Yeah, and we've been with each other through thick and thin. We've gotten into heated arguments. We fought about stupid shit, right? I remember in high school, I pinned this fool's arms to his chest and I socked his arms till they went dead. Like we've been through some shit together, right? But because of that honesty, our friendship is tighter than ever. Like that guy's my brother,
Huge.
And like I feel sad for people who sometimes don't expect that out of the people around them. You know what I mean?
Too many people aren't in relationships like that. I feel like that's a rarity now to see a long-lasting relationship where you're honest and open with people. I feel like I see so many relationships that it's all good. I only talk about the good things, or you're hyping somebody up. That doesn't build depth. That doesn't build truth. You don't get to actually know someone You don't actually let yourself be known if you're not able to be vulnerable and truthful like that.
My lady was going through a problem. Not a problem. Let's not say that. She was just kind of reassessing or reevaluating certain friendships with people that she has that I've had a weird feeling about, right?
Okay.
And me being her husband, I'm gonna speak my truth about it. I'll be like, hey, like I dislike it when these people around you do this, and that. And then she also expressed her feelings about this. And the topic that I'm talking about that's related to this is she assumed that she had these friends who were really good friends, right? But I said, they're not really your friends. And she said this as well, because you tell them everything about your life, but they don't share anything about theirs. So
one-way street.
It's a one-way street. So literally she had a conversation with one of them. They go, okay, oh, so what are you doing for work? Blah, 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 blah. And she tells her everything about her work or whatever. And they own a business. They go, oh, what's going on with your business and this? They go, well, we can't tell you that. She's like, what the fuck?
What?
You just asked me about my personal life and my work life. I expressed that to you. And then me asking you about yours, I'm out of pocket. Like, what? What are you?
How?
I don't get it.
We're friends, right?
Exactly.
Are we friends? No.
Yeah.
What?
That's a one-way street.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it don't make sense at all. And so, I've definitely, when those friends come around, I'm a little rough with them.
Hey,
so, like,
you a real one. That's what I always tell you, but you a real one. And I respect you for that. And I appreciate that. I would expect you to check me if I come out of pocket or I say some outlandish stuff out here.
You're around like guys around comics who say things out of pocket 24/7. It's gonna be crazy to get me.
True. Well, a few of my friends are comics, but not all of them. Not all of them.
Listen, I've fucked up so many times where like I'll go back home to Sacramento and I'm over here around comics and we're joking around a lot. And I forget that my mentality is this is the comics room. And I go over to regular people and the room is silent and they're just mortified. I'm like, hey, my bad. I forgot. Like I'm around
this
normal
is a roast session right now. Like, I wasn't prepared to have my heart thrown into a bucket as you roasted me for fun. I get that.
My buddy Jason Cheney, this fool just texted me the other day and he always makes a fucking fat joke at me that has me crying laughing. Like this guy legit, he was just like, dude, how are all three of your chins doing? And I'm like, bro, I just woke up. Like, dog, it's
early for that.
It's 8 a.m. in the morning. Why the fuck am I waking up to this?
It's the first thing. First thing.
This motherfucker's like,
roast you in the morning.
He's like, you want to go get dinner? I know you already had 3 of them. Did I just get the 4th one? And I'm like, just ask me if I want to eat, bro. Like,
that is good. I'm glad. I don't think I got thick skin like that, dog. I couldn't deal with friends like that. We would be scrapping. Hey, put these gloves on, dog. Meet me in the garage right now. We got to handle this my way.
That's good, but I have to knock you out. Here you go.
That was funny. I gave you some cool points for that one. I'll write that one down. But we're gonna fight now.
But I'll tell you this though, I really do. When I was out in Hawaii, and I always see people like Polynesians and Hawaiians, like the way they deal with their problems is like, oh, you talk that shit, you gotta pay for it, and then we'll be cool after. Which you don't see that a lot. Like you see people scrap, and then the next, like after they knock this guy out, they dab it up. They're like, you good? We good? All right, respect. Let's get drinks and then move the fuck on. Because there's consequences for this shit.
There is. Your actions might have some consequences. I'm so happy I'm learning that. My wife's Pacific Islander, so I'm well aware of the culture.
Oh, man, I've seen dudes just scrap it out. I've seen it multiple times, man. And I'm like, man, in Hawaii, I'm going to have to keep my fucking mouth shut. Like this is, somebody's going to beat my ass and everybody's a UFC fighter here.
We're going to fight and then we're going to have a beer after you wake up.
I'll tell you this, after you knock me out, don't touch me. You stay over there, I stay over here.
We won't have to have those problems. Though. We've already sparred before, so it'll be cool. We already know. We already understand.
You and I will never fight.
Don't say never, man. Come on, don't say never.
There's a skill and a gap difference between you that's like here and here.
It's all right, but I know how to work with fighters, man.
You're actually very nice to spar, man. And I think like people who are really skilled at what they do, they know who they are, so they don't have anything to prove. So I feel a lot more safe and comfortable with it. Because even for me, because I'm not trained, like I'll have these moments where I'm spazzy, and the person who's more trained should understand that. Like, oh, he's new at this. Let's give him some forgiveness.
Always.
Except if you're not with that person who does that, then it's just going to be an all-out brawl and you don't know what's going to happen. And I've experienced that a couple of times and I did not like it. I did not like it at all. And I felt terrible after. And I just, because you already know the story with me, you know? And I did not like it. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way it felt during, and it wasn't fun anymore.
I've been there before too, brother. And it don't feel good when you work with somebody that's trying to prove something. But I've had those seasons and that's my past. I don't need to prove nothing to anybody. Yeah. And I am so grateful for this season of my life where I'm at now, where again, I can get in the ring with people and I don't got to prove it to anybody. I'm not trying to show out. There's no cameras on. We're here to enjoy the work, have some fun, and I want to help you get better. Mm-hmm. That's what this is.
And that's the thing about being a good coach too, right? Which I felt like, I switched around a lot of coaches in my day, just trying to sample things out. There's the one coach who absolutely knows jack all nothing. Mm-hmm. And they try to fake the funk with a lot of beginner people, which there was a shit ton of that.
A lot of that.
I had no fucking idea. Got a few dollars taken from me. But thank God I was switching around other places. And it was like, oh, you're a liar. You actually don't know anything. Mm-hmm. And I looked them up. I'm like, oh, where have you trained? Certification? Have you even boxed? None of that. Get the fuck out of my face.
There's a lot of people that can fraudulently put themselves out there. And in the day and age that we're in today, again, all it takes is a website, a few good pictures.
And then you get somebody like me, and they didn't know what was happening. And then you have other coaches who are not really malleable and they train everybody the exact same way, even though everybody doesn't have the same attributes. And that was a tough one for me too, where like I had a coach who didn't really like the way that I was boxing because I was comfortable. I think I just like long guard. You know what I mean? Depending on the situation, right? A lot of frames, people are different, right? Yeah. If I have the reach advantage, I'm going to use this. But he fucking hated that I was doing this. But I'm like, listen, if I'm 6'1" and you have me sparring this guy that's 5'8", why would I not use my reach?
I'm going to stay right here in that jab.
Exactly. Right. I'm going to stay here. If he's shelling up, I'm going to use his shell. You know what I mean? 24/7. And he hated it. He goes, hands up. I'm like, hands are up, but his reach is shorter than mine. Why would I let him get close to me? Yeah. And so I got really, really frustrated. And he's just like, you're not going to get better. I'm like, I just pieced up your boxer. So, and we're at the same level, but you're telling me that I should have my hands up and get close to him and get in that 50-50 position with him. Why?
Oh, hands up all the time. That's what you hear that boxing coaches all the time. You got to have your hands up all the time. You don't need to have your hands up all the time. There's a reason and a place for it. But yeah, if you are not being a cookie cutter type of coach and you can be malleable to help people and to be specific and to give them specific protocols, you can help them a lot better and then be more valuable to people. I've always learned that. And that's one of the things I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still a student in the game. I've been doing this for 20 years now. So I'm excited to continue to grow, to continue to learn, and to continue to help people in the day-to-day. So.
I love it, man. And, your buddy, Shane Faze, and like I think,
fight tips, baby.
Fight tips, man, and that's like it's so crazy that whole world because that's where I saw you. But then I met you through Bart, and I actually met Shane through Bart as well.
Small world,
man. And I used to watch the videos all the time. Right, I couldn't do any of the stuff, but I used to watch them all the time. And then Shane said something great. It's like you learn the rules to break them, right? Learn the foundation first, and then figure out what works well for you afterwards.
Shane's a master, brother. I miss that guy. We used to put a lot of work in, and I'll always credit Shane for a lot of growth for me being a content creator and a coach, and how to actually, I thought I was a student. And then me and Shane are hanging out. One of the first times we're kicking it, watching a UFC fight, and my man had the notepad out and the pen during the prelims and is taking notes and watching everything. I'm like, Shane, you're a psychopath. And I love this, bro. Let's go. Yeah. Like, the fight tips years are great. I haven't done a fight tips video in like 5 years.
Where is Shane? I feel like he's all over the place.
Shane's home on the East Coast, making himself happy and enjoying life and still putting out great content. I see him. He still does fight tips, man. Come on. You got to check the fight tips out, man. But fight tips was a segue to get me learning and to continually be creating and now being part of Fight Camp, where I get to train, teach, and coach people all around the world every day.
Because I was watching his videos the other day and I was like, wait, this is not the same. Because he was traveling in his van for a bit, so I didn't know where his home base is anymore. I'm like, it's not California for sure. So I'm like, where the fuck did he go?
My man left the Best Coast. I don't know if he already made that announcement or anything, but the homie's no longer hanging out with me on a weekly basis, but he's still doing great. Him and the family and Sully, they're crushing it. I'm really proud of him. I got to get out there and visit soon. I think we're gonna make an East Coast trip in like May or something. So
he's like one of those guys that's like, he really lives up to the name of being a true martial artist.
Shane's a real one. I mean, like I say you're a real one, but also Shane is in that category as well for people that I know, like, and trust and have been around them enough and seen their expertise, their care to the minute details, and he's a master craftsman in what he does, bro.
When I first met him, I said one thing to him. I was like, "Hey, man, so when you train, it's like, how do you stay fit all the way all year round?" And he's like, "Well, if I'm a martial artist and my body's my temple, I'm going to take care of it." I was like, "Well, thank you. I feel like a piece of shit now." I was like, "All right, well, I feel like trash. Thank you for that."
He's a great man.
You say that as I'm fucking had this In-N-Out burger in my hand. I see what you're saying.
The body's a temple. Gotta respect it. But In-N-Out Burger is great, bro.
Yeah.
Let's be real. In-N-Out Burger is great.
Oh, it's fine. When people say In-N-Out is not good, you'd fucking tripping, dude.
Trash. These people's opinions, which you're entitled to them, that's trash. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm entitled to my opinion about your opinion, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's how we should go.
I'll say this. Like, you could say that it's not your favorite burger, but
it's not my favorite burger.
It's a good burger.
It's not my favorite. There's a lot of burger spots in LA that I hit up. Anyway, we could be on a 3-hour podcast. We're talking about burgers, dog.
Well, guys, that wraps up this episode of the Genius Brain Podcast. PJ, where can they find you?
Oh, man, you guys can find me at Train with PJ on all social media platforms. Also, you can train with me with Fight Camp. So join fightcamp.com. And if you want to listen to my podcast, check out the BDE podcast on Spotify.
Let's go. Genius